In doing my audience analysis, I had 3 questions in mind for this speech. I could either talk about government involvement, I could talk about what we can do to help, or I could talk about our own experiences with restoration ecology. All of my questions were very fastly, when in my audience analysis, you guys all answered the questions exactly how I didn't want you to answer them. So I started out with 72% of the class thinking that ecosystems did need restoration to thrive. That threw my first question completely out the window. 75% of you agreed that taxpayer dollars should go into ecological restoration. I did not think that many of you guys would agree with me on that, but you did. However, you guys did not specify whether you thought that it should be restoring after the problems are done or trying to prevent the problems from happening in the first place. In our world, there is many problems such as littering, pollution, and an influx of waste everywhere, in oceans, parks, and even our walks. On my walk to school alone this morning, it's a less than 7-minute walk, and I saw a ton of wrappers, I saw pop cans, and I saw a McDonald's bag just sitting around on my walk to school. That's a 7-minute walk from my house to here. We hear countless stories of the big problems, such as ocean trash, wildfires, and a loss of biodiversity in many places. As these problems arise, governments try to step in and remedy the situations. However, they cannot always do everything. Government involvement in restoration and protecting of ecosystems should not be focused on repairing what has been broken, but preventing these problems from happening in the first place. Failing ecosystems are in part to many different things. The number one thing is the human impact on the world. Humans have been around for many years, and why are we having such problems now? We are having these problems because of a one-time use throwaway society that we live in. Many people just have everything and just use it once and then throw it away. And this can be straws, trash bags, grocery bags, and just everything that we can think of. This human impact, the thing is, everyone knows that humans impact the earth. 100% of you guys responded yes to some version, said yes, that human impact is the biggest problem, with some version of, quote, no other species has made a greater impact than humans. In an article entitled Disappearing Species by Tom Arundel, he talks about the number of endangered species and how the number has drastically changed in the past 5 years alone. This change is in part due to humans' impact on society and the loss of habitats that go along with it. The many loss of habitats is in part to humans coming in and populating the house, and populating everywhere. If you are driving down the countryside, you can tell a distinct difference from the countryside that's naturally there versus the countryside that has been taken up and lived in because of the turf lawns instead of the prairie grasses that are there. In the article, Defining and Evaluating Ecological Restoration and Economy, they talk about the benefits of government intervention in ecosystems and how it would affect the economy. Quote, media outlets have propagated the notion that environmental protection is bad for business. This is simply incorrect. This cannot be proven anywhere that this is a thing. It has been created so then businesses do not have to spend money on improving what is already working system. Governments have helped in many ways, but where's a specific example? One of the specific examples that I found was the 2010 Gulf oil spill. In the article Gulf Coast Restoration by Jennifer Weeks, she says that $2 billion have been spent on the cleanup of the Gulf Coast. However, this $2 billion has not done too much to fix the problem, because this problem is basically irreversible. There is ways that they can try to help, but the problem is there's no way of fixing it after it has happened. Earlier, I briefly touched on the idea of businesses not losing money. However, I didn't go into detail, so in policy analysis for emission reduction with green technology and investments in manufacturing, governments can offer subsidies governments can offer subsidies to firms based on their emissions and green technology investments. Alternatively, they can also impose taxes on firms with high emissions. This will help encourage them to create less emissions so they protect the world a lot easier. One of the things that they can do, many people claim that these policies will harm business even though these policies create a better environment. Can we put a price on our living in a healthy world? Petrie argues that environmental goals and targets should be integrated into overall fiscal strategy, which then drives the annual budget process. This means that if the thought of environmental protection is already built into the plan of the governments, then there will already be money put aside for it. This is from Environmental Governance and Green Fiscal Policy, Government's Accountability for Environmental Stewardship. What I think that they need to start doing more is preventing rather than redeeming themselves after these problems have been made. These problems can be very easily prevented in the first place, however, they are normally not. Many of these solutions include subsidies and taxing on businesses and just all these things to try to prevent businesses from leaching all these harmful chemicals and problems into the environment. However, governments can only do so much on their own. They can help prevent the big problems. However, we have faced so many small problems every day. Many of the problems that we can cause every day is just by simple one-use plastic. The average human goes through 220 pounds of plastic per year. This costs around $169 to produce that 220 pounds of plastic. This is from government requirements, business under certain standards. So what we can do to help improve our own, all the small problems, is just start using reusable things rather than one-time use things to try to prevent these problems from worsening. These are all my sources that I used throughout the speech. In my speech, I explained how government should be working towards preventing problems rather than fixing the problems after they arise. Though they cannot fix everything, but we can one step at a time. Thank you for listening.